Today on the Servant Leadership Podcast, we're joined by David Horsager, a global authority on trust and leadership and the CEO of the Trust Edge Leadership Institute. David has spent decades researching what makes leaders, teams, and organizations truly effective, and it all comes down to trust. David works with everyone from professional sports teams to Fortune 100 companies to leaders of nations, helping them build cultures of trust. In this episode, David unpacks what breaks trust, how to rebuild it, and why servant leadership can't exist without it. If you're looking to lead more effectively, build stronger teams, or simply show up better, this episode is packed with clarity and insight you can put into action.
Before we jump into today's episode, I want to thank Thrivent for partnering with us on the Servant Leadership Podcast. Thrivent is a holistic Fortune 500 financial services organization that provides advice, investments, insurance, banking, and generosity programs to help people make the most of all they've been given. Each day, Thrivent helps more than 2 million clients build their financial futures and enjoy lives full of meaning and gratitude. Thrivent is also growing and looking for talent with a heart for service. Join a team dedicated to financial excellence and service that offers competitive compensation, flexible work options, comprehensive benefits, and opportunities for professional growth. Learn more about Thrivent's financial services and career opportunities today at thrivent.com. David, thank you so much for joining us on the Servant Leadership Podcast.
Chris, it's a treat to be here. Thank you so much.
I have been following your stuff for so long, it's not even funny. And I have been so blessed by it. Talk about how somebody becomes one of the world leaders on trust. What a cool thing to be known for.
Well, it's a pretty big miracle story along the way, but I'd built some leadership curriculum at a young age in the 20s. I'd been part of this discipleship leadership of the biggest Christian sports camp in the country and all this kind of stuff. And then I built this, and I one of the U.S. military academies asked me to come teach it there and all these things. And I started doing more of that. And so we went full time in 1999. Lisa and I kind of started from a basement with no windows, bathroom, or kitchen, but we felt called to it. But it was actually shortly after that. I remember where I was because it was like the most expensive place I'd stayed until then. This company put me up in the Lowe's Resort in Arizona. I'm like, wow, and Lisa, we didn't have 4 kids yet or anything. So we're there, and I was thinking about the client, thinking about the audience from that day, and I thought, they think they have a leadership issue, but they don't. They don't trust the guy. It's a trust issue. And then I started thinking about this other sales issue we were looking at. I was like, it's not a sales issue. The reason people buy is something to do with trust, the product or the person or something. And I started, then it kind of just was intuitive, no research yet, right? And I'm just like intuitive, like, hey, those guys aren't innovating there because someone's hiding ideas. They don't trust the group. And I started thinking about learning. Well, what's the core issue to learning? It's like the only way to increase learning in a classroom is increase trust in the content or the, professor or the psychological safety or trust of the room. And then I started looking at the Harvard research before I did my research, like the biggest Harvard study shows diversity of almost any kind puts or pits people together in some way, not just color of skin. I mean, it just puts or pits people against each other unless you increase trust, and then you can get enormous benefits, right? And then I was thinking, in your world, marketing experts that you are, I started thinking, well, marketing, the only way to amplify a marketing message is increase trust in the message. And so that was intuitive, but what happened was that led to my grad work. And the first thing you do in research is you research the research that's out there. And at the time, a couple decades ago, there was nobody looking. There's people talking about therapy trust, but in organization and all that kind of stuff, there was nobody at the time basically looking at this like I'm talking about. And so I was one of the first to kind of tie trust to the bottom line, actually show how a lack of trust is the biggest expense in an organization. I can talk about that more in a second, but basically that trust, we proved out how trust is the leading indicator. So you don't have an engagement issue. You increase trust to get engagement. You don't get engagement with engagement. Net Promoter Score. I was working with Procter & Gamble and United Health Group at the time, and they were trying to come together on pricing and some issues. And it was the chief culture officer who said, You know what, David? I think what you've shown is it's not an NPS issue. It's actually at the core a trust issue. And when we dealt with trust, we started getting higher NPS and other things. And with the Admiral of the Navy last year say we helped them lower suicide rates when we trained 15,000 sailors and carriers. And we had a person, say, oh, we tripled sales when we, in 90 days when we use this. And we had Fortune 50 companies say, well, we gained 11% market share when we changed this framework. But the first company I used it after the research came out, and how we actually build trust. The first company where we knew we had something way back was a little healthcare organization, 14 mental health clinics, and they said within 9 months they dropped attrition. They were bleeding attrition. They saved $2 to $4 million in attrition costs. Like, if we can do this, how do you amplify influence? You increase trust. How do you speed up a sale? You increase trust. So trust, without ego, and I don't like when consultants come in and say, it's always this way. But I do believe, Chris, it is always trust. Trust is the leading indicator. So what happened there is this kind of epiphany around trust, and it keeps growing in me, because at first it was this research. Then it was applied research, and this is getting results. And we've had the biggest companies in the world say this actually they've used this training company or that consultancy or that huge whatever, and this is what actually worked, this trust worked. And so that just fed it. We put a big study out every year, I think the biggest of its kind, at least out of North America. That feeds it, we've had our framework's been revalidated by outside universities. But I'll tell you, Chris, probably the reason I'm so passionate about it is because not just that I've seen it firsthand, but it's actually changed me. It's changed me as a parent, as a leader, and on the faith side, I kept seeing this come out of Scripture. It's like God was talking about this way ahead of me. Now, when it came out of secular research, all of a sudden pro sports teams and governments and presidents and, all that came. But it's like God's talking a lot about trust, not just Proverbs 3, 5, and 6, trust in the Lord with all your heart, and not, but this call even back to Jethro and Moses saying, hey, you got to stop doing it all yourself. Find for yourself those that are trustworthy. And there's this big call throughout Scripture, Proverbs 12:20, the Lord delights in the trustworthy. And I'm like, that's what really we want as leaders, is not just trusted, but trustworthy. What does that look like? And of course, in the framework, we see all these threads of Scripture of clothe yourself with compassion. We trust those that have compassion. Oh, be clear, without, vision, people perish. And so that was kind of fun after the research, how I started to see that in my faith too.
I love that. I mean, what hit me the first time I ever heard you talk about trust was you said something along the lines of, you don't have a leadership issue, you have a trust issue.
Always, 100%.
You don't have a sales issue, you've got a trust issue. And you went through these things, and I was like, wow, I conceptually was like, okay, how would I reframe my thinking? Mm-hmm. And you went through these 8 pillars, yep, and you talked through how to actually build trust. Those 8 pillars have been very impactful for me, and it seems like they're just steady and true. And you mentioned a couple of them right there without calling them pillars, but talk about how that even came about and what they are for our audience.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. So first of all, if the first half of research is the why, right? Is this really, if trust really is this important, if it's always a trust issue instead of a leadership, innovation, diversity, marketing issue, that's the core issue. And we really proved that out, and how a lack of trust is the biggest cost. And I can show that. Maybe that's another podcast. But if that's so important, then how do you build it? So then we started looking at the commonalities of how trust is built. We have a definition of trust, what we mean by it, and it's how is it built. And these 8 traits came out of that, 8 specific traits. Now, I define them by C words for clarity, but please don't think of them as some cutesy pastoral list. They each represent a very important research funnel. That's why some people see these 8 C's and think, oh, somebody just kind of wanted a cute book, right? They're really important. The Enterprise Trust Index is built on them, the team assessment, the self-assessment, it's all these 8. And the C words do a good job of representing the intent of the research. So This is, I will argue, how trust is built globally. Everything comes under these 8. It doesn't matter if it's corruption issues, policing issues, leadership issues, sales issues, but that doesn't mean we don't contextualize, and we might start in Latin America with this pillar, we might start in Norway with this pillar. They're more results oriented, these are more community oriented, or in this issue or that issue, but it all comes back to these 8. So I can give you the 8, try to do it really quickly, and then we can move into a few if you want some takeaways that people can use tomorrow. So under these 8, we have all these tools that people can use to build that pillar. But the 8 pillars of a trust are, number 1, clarity. We trust the clear, and we mistrust or distrust the ambiguous or the overly complex. So where I was a professor, gotta look smart, gotta be complex, we always lose clarity, which always loses trust. Today, clarity beats cleverness. And with due respect to your brilliance, most marketing people and most strategic people do not understand clarity at the level I'm talking about. They just don't. And I'll spend a little more time on this one, and then I'll list the others, because if you can see this in clarity, you can start to see how all of them affect each other. So clarity, like if a leader's not clear about vision, people might not follow. A manager that's not clear about expectations are really frustrated. Number 1 frustration on the index of people being managed is they can't win because they don't have a clear expectation. A teacher that's unclear about the assignments, the students go home frustrated. A salesperson, why aren't people buying? I mean, I'm so clear about how cool I am and how long I've been in business, nobody cares. Once they got clear about the benefits of that product to me, I started to buy, right? So they got clear about the right thing, and clarity won, and clarity beats cleverness. And I'll give one simple, fun example from very recently. I'm speaking at a big event, 100,000 people or something out in California. The convention center's a few miles away from the hotel. The CEO picks me up at the hotel and drives me to the event site. It's a few miles. So on that highway, on the right-hand side out my window are stores and malls. And, they all have a few cars in the parking lot, but one of them was packed. Every spot was full. I just whoa, it's so full. And I'm like, people, they had to know why to get off this highway in the middle of nowhere, California, to go to that. So even outsiders had to know, right? And so I got it because I looked above that building and there was a 1-word bold sign that was crystal clear. You know what it was, Chris?
What?
Liquor. And the point is nothing except for clever, not cleverness, not like, there's a lady that wanted to have this really cute haircutting salon, so she called it Whispers on Main. Nobody knew why the heck to go there. She changed it to Best Cuts by Barb. People came. Clarity wins. So that's number 1, and we have, like I said, a lot of tools, and there's some really great ones under that. Maybe we'll come back to them, but I'll give one right here quick that anybody can use if they're looking at their message. Under clarity, if you want to make your message matter today, it's got to be MRA. It's got to be memorable, it's got to be repeatable, it's got to be actionable. And many people miss one of those. And so they have values that are memorable and repeatable, but not actionable. So people don't live by them, don't decide by them. They've got memorable and actionable, but it's not repeatable. People don't say it around the place. It's not shared like my mentor and friend, Mr. Soderquist, the first billionaire part of Walmart. I got to stay in his house and be mentored by him when I was living in another country, Arkansas. Actually, I love Arkansas. I love the board I had there. So just with due respect, but I remember, he talked about how he grew the culture there through telling of stories, and it was because they were repeatable. So we can look at any of those, but just check your message. You got to pivot because of a pandemic, or you got to share a new value, or you got to cut a whole business unit. Is the message you're giving memorable, repeatable, and actionable? It's a simple little idea. There's lots more of those. You got, trust matters or whatever, but there's simple little ideas that people can use tomorrow. And I think that's one thing in people using our institute is we love research-based, but we take it to tools they can use tomorrow. I'm a farm kid from the poorest county in Minnesota, and I need to be able to use that shovel, right? So that's what I think is a differentiator of our work too, is that it's usable to build trust tomorrow. So MRA is one idea. Okay, let's get through the others so you can take a breath. Or you can comment now. I know I talk long.
This is so good. Yeah,
okay.
This is good. Keep telling them.
So the next pillar is compassion. Number 2, we trust those that care beyond themselves. So a big word that came out of this funnel was intent. We trust people that have intent, even if they don't care about me, if they don't have intent beyond themselves towards some mission or some people, I have a hard time trusting them, following them, or being accountable to them. And so compassion, care. Number 3 is character. We trust those that do what's right over what's easy. Really cool story in the book about that, but there's some questions I would ask under this one. It would be one, we have a 7-step process for how you build a high character company, but if I start with individuals, and the question we want to ask for individuals is, would you follow you? Would you follow you? There's 3 questions, but that's going to be the one I'll land on today. Would you follow you? And it's so often, that big wig is followed by people way out there. But I know a lot more about their character by their closest friends, their family, right? I remember getting to speak at this huge leadership event. Everybody else was more known than me. I was the opening keynote. They were all, I know I was the least known. And one of them I was excited to meet in the green room because I'd read all of his books and thought, wow, that's, this would be neat to meet him in person. I did meet him in person, and I found out one thing, and that is he's a whole lot different off stage than he is on stage. And that I never need to meet him again. And it's like, this is the thing, would you actually, follow you? There's a lot more to each of these, but let's go to number 4. So we've got clarity, we've got compassion, we've got character. Number 4 is competency. We trust those that stay fresh and relevant, competent, and capable. So I might trust Chris Lessner to take my kids to the ball game because of his character and compassion. That does not mean I'll trust Chris to give me a root canal, right? So you have to stay fresh and relevant and capable. This is, a lot of you had Horst on, and how he was in the room when the Chick-fil-A decided to teach everybody my pleasure, right? And that's like, you got the same kids at that fast food place and Chick-fil-A, and how is it that this year, average per store revenue at number 2 position is 3.6 million, McDonald's, and number 1, without working a whole day out of the week, is 9.2 million. It's like the kids didn't just come out of the womb at Chick-fil-A saying my pleasure, right? They got trained and developed, and there's a whole lot of more things to how they do their training and development, because I'm telling you, it's not the chicken. It is not. It's a sauce, Chris. No, it's not anything with the food, what they do, how they're winning. And there's other companies like that are winning on training and development. We know for a fact that you can keep people longer and have more engagement just by training people a little bit more, 5 minutes more, 10 minutes more a week. And people want 3 to 1. They want people and leadership skills that will help them be better in life, even in their marriages, than they want tactical training. Not that you don't need to do that. Competency. So the next pillar after competency is commitment. We trust those that stay committed in the face of adversity. So I'm not saying people don't need mental health help or other things when things get bad, but if you're going to jump when we're in a pandemic, or you're going to jump when we get a tough time, I'm not going to trust you. I mean, I need to know you're going to stick with me through the adversity, right? So we trust those that stay committed in the face of adversity. And one part that people ask often under this pillar, one of the tools is the process for rebuilding trust. So we've all lost trust. We've all made a mistake. It's how do you rebuild it? So there's a 10-step process in the book, but I'll give you the key. And that is, you never rebuild trust on the apology. I'm not saying don't apologize. That can open the door of communication, but you never rebuild trust on that. I'm sorry I'm late. No, you're not. You're late every time, right? The only way to ever rebuild trust after all of the 10 steps, the only way to ever rebuild trust if you get the chance is to make and keep a new commitment. It's the only way. That's the commitment pillar. Next pillar is connection. We trust those that are willing to connect and collaborate with others. If they push against siloing. And you see companies that incentivize siloing, right? They're like, you better use this budget up. I don't care if you need it this year. You don't think about everybody else. Don't think about the overall mission. Just use it up or you're not going to get it next year. And you just incentivized a lack of connection and collaboration. And by the way, the bigger problems we have the more we need to connect and collaborate. This is a challenge on Capitol Hill. I think you know that one of the boards I'm on, I'm out in D.C. 4 or 5 times a year, where I'm the only non-member of Congress or non-governor that brings together Republicans and Democrats on Capitol Hill 4 or 5 times a year. Obviously, I'm not very good, but the bottom line there are some Republicans and Democrats that want to come together, that want to work together. It's just a few handfuls or a handful of each. We only allow at the meetings the equal number of Republicans, equal number of Democrats. But it's amazing what happens when they get together and see that they agree on more than they think. The problem, of course, is so much division. I mean, on Capitol Hill, this is going off the rails a little bit, but you think about this, 100 years ago, a Republican and Democrat senator would duke it out on the floor, and then they would get on a train and eat every night together on the way back to California. And they saw each other as human. Now, you got a Republican and Democrat deli, different ones in the Capitol. I mean, they never get together. They don't see each other. They don't touch it. They don't see each other as human. It's a big problem. We have to build connection in order to get collaboration, which we need to solve the biggest problems in the world. We need more trust. The next pillar, that's number 7, and that's contribution. We have to contribute results. This one, I'll say the number 1 word out of the funnel was results. You've got to contribute results. You can't just have compassion and character. You've got to, that fertilizer's got to get me higher yield in my corn, or that food has got to be something that'll nourish me, or that student has to be someone that actually learns math, like can actually do it, whatever it is. You have to get results, actually. In your space, in marketing, let's say, I want, you might be the kindest, sweetest, whatever, but I actually need to have people see my message or whatever it is, right? So results, this is, you can have some of the greatest coaches in the world and they get fired all the time if they don't get results. You got to contribute results to be trusted. I could, go in for amputation on my leg and they cut off the wrong one. We got a problem even if they were kind, right? So the final pillar is consistency. And that's just same. We trust whatever you do all the time. I can trust you for good or bad on consistency. If you're late consistently, I will still trust you to be late, right? So sameness is trusted. And the only way to build a reputation is consistency. The only way to build a brand is consistency. But that's a quick overview of the 8. And I could go deeper in all these. There's tools to amplify and build these. But I will just say this quick as a kind of overall. Everything in building with trust comes into these 8 we found. And we've used this across 6 continents. We've used it from pro sports teams to global governments, across industries. Now, doesn't mean we don't contextualize how we show up. Like, empathy, for instance, comes under compassion. How I show that in North America is generally some eye contact. The best way to show it in a part of the Middle East might be to not look someone in the eye, to show compassion or show care. So how we show up with it might tweak a little bit, but these are the 8 that actually build trust in a brand, in a marketing message, in a leader, in an organization, at least in the way we define trust. And of course, there's weightedness to them. If I might want my pilot to be really high competency, even if they're not very compassionate. I might want my nanny to be high compassion, even if they don't know much. But in general, to gain the greatest advantage of trust, it's all 8. And one more thing, and take a breath, is it really is these 8. And not only has this been validated by outside universities, it's like what we found is when people define it by these instead of big ambiguous words, they actually start to solve the real problem. So we say engagement, no, what's that? A leadership, or people love this. David, we know you were an undergrad in communication. Isn't it ever a communication issue? And with due respect, it is never, ever, 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 ever at the core a communication issue. It's the type. So clear, number 1 pillar, is trusted. Unclear communication is not. Number 2 pillar, compassionate communication is trusted. Hateful communication is not. High character communication is trusted. Dishonest is not. Competent is see, if they just would go down, if people would take these 8 and put them on the refrigerator or put them on the computer, like, oh, something's going wrong with me and my 16-year-old daughter. which is it? Oh, they're not feeling cared about. Or, oh, I wasn't clear about what I expected before they do their chores or whatever. And they start to get what they wanted. We have all these deep assessments, but in the marketing world, if it's just like 1 out of 10, let me look at that message. Oh, does it show, is it crystal clear? Oh, yep, it is. Okay, then 1 out of 10, does it show compassion? Number 2, does it show compassion 1 out of 10 for the people we care? Oh, does it show our competency? Oh, does it connect with our people? Oh, is it consistent and on brand? Oh, with a gut level, looking through the 8, I can know if I have a strong or weak marketing message, for example.
Yeah, this is so good. And one of the things that I love is in your books, in the emails that you send out, in the speaking you do, podcast stuff that you're doing, you give really practical step-by-steps for each of those, right? So that's where if people are listening and some of them sound like such simple concepts, and in theory, they actually are kind of simple concepts the way it lays out, but the actual practical steps have a lot of things that people dive deeper into them that wouldn't come to mind naturally. At least that's what I found.
Yep, and it takes work. You can find all kinds of kind of motivational speakers say, oh, just, change a habit in 21 days or this or that, stuff not built on even research. Trust takes work, but it's work that's worth it. But I think the difference with this, and however God made me, was maybe I just needed it. I needed to break it down to the simple way to apply it. And that's why you have MRA and ODC and the 6 steps to accountability and the 10 steps to rebuild trust. It was like stuff that, okay, this is how we actually live this out. And that's definitely true.
Just our listeners, when they're walking into a room, do you think people naturally have a tendency to trust them? Or do people start out with a distrust of them and trust has to be earned? How do you see that play out?
Yeah, I can tell you what the research says in North America on that. In the last study that we studied that exact question. So, and if people want, we give our research away free, we pay for it. Global study, plus or minus 1.8% margin of error, all that. But we aren't a marketer with our research, we give it away. So trustoutlook.com is where our research is, or our white papers every year are for each annual study. But that question's an interesting one, Chris. And we did that the year we did it. A lot of times we do global, but in my head, I can tell you what the US part of that is. And that is about 50% of Americans right now lead with what you could say trust. In other words, they trust you until you blow it. And about 50% lead with skepticism. In other words, they're skeptical until you've built it. Now, before we judge what type why that is, generally, or in many cases, the ones that lead with skepticism had something not good happen to them that was not their fault within the first 18 years of life. Somebody really blew trust with them. So that's just the facts. The good news is, for you as a leader or not, you don't have to act any differently. Whether it's these or these, you actively build trust every day and you will win the most.
Yeah, that's great feedback. I mean, in today's day and age, I feel like I'm hearing more about trust than ever before. Mm-hmm. You've got such tech advancements with AI and just in general where tech is moving that people talk about how you're not going to be able to trust anything, ever, other than face-to-face stuff. You just can't trust anything. And even still, how are you navigating those conversations? Because it's rapidly changing.
Well, that's really interesting here. On one side, zero trust actually increases trust. So there's funny words going on right now, right? Or blockchain can be a massive trust builder. But I think this is an interesting way at that. I'll give you a 1 minute or 90-second history of trust, and we'll get at that exact topic. So a long, long time ago, we did not trust for 2 reasons, right? One, I don't know you. You look differently than me. You talk differently. You're from down by Chicago, right? Or you have a different accent or a different custom, right? So I don't trust you because I didn't know you. The second reason I didn't trust is I do know you and I've seen how you act, right? So those are reasons. It was very personal way back. But then we moved forward hundreds of years to when trust was institutionalized. And institutional trust in many ways was good because it gave concreteness to trust. So you could have, when it was institutionalized, you could have a bad teacher and not lose trust in all of education. You could have a bad senator and not lose trust in the whole government. And until about 30 some years ago in America, believe it or not, we trusted our government, 80%, almost 79%, trusted our government to do basically what was right. Now it's less than, I think, 10%. Like about 30 years ago, institutional trust tanked. So you had education. I mean, when I was growing up, everybody trusted the institution of education. Homeschooling was weird. Not anymore, because the institution of education has taken a big trust hit and it tanked. Religion. I mean, almost the same number of people say they believe in God as did 80 years ago in America. But any metric that would show trusting the institution, giving, or going to a place of worship is down steeply. Farming like I grew up. I mean, does the restaurant want a semi-load of my dad's dark red kidney beans? No, they want to grow them on their rooftop and pick them with a glove and kiss them on the way to the plate, right? It's not the institution they want. So, and media is the same way. I mean, you remember, Chris, I don't know if you do, you're young, but when we had the news, I mean, it used to be the news, Walter Cronkite, not anymore. Where do you get your news? Where do you get your news? Who's your news? What's your news? And we used to say we know someone by their date book or checkbook. Now I can ask where they get their news and I know a whole lot about them, right? So media has tanked even more, and I can give you all the reasons, or some of the reasons that I believe that is. But institutional trust then moved toward distributed trust. And when I grew up at least, you weren't supposed to get in a car with someone you didn't know, but now let's call it Uber and call it good, right? And you say, oh, don't sleep in someone else's home. Bring your own mattress, call it Airbnb, we're good. And so all of a sudden trust had this distributed trust, Uber, Airbnb, blockchain, right? And there are ways that can be trusted. But what's interesting is just a couple years ago now, in a massive global study on the topic, trust came back to more personal than it's been in 1,000 years. Why is that? I mean, we more than ever before want to touch, smell, see, know you. And this doesn't mean we're not going to use technology in life. My newest book that comes out next year is called Trust at a Distance, How to Build Trust in a Remote Work Team. So, I mean, that's still going to be a thing. But I do love personal, and it is more personal than ever. Why is that? A couple of reasons it's come back to personal is because, number one, we found out how many reviews online are manipulated or bought. We're not sure if that's a real review or not. Number two, deepfakes. And this started way back in 2007 with, first time on a magazine that was trusted. I think it was USA Today, Time or something, where you had Martha Stewart coming out of jail, and she looks wealthier and ready for prime time or something, and they found out that it was her head on a figure of a model, and they found out it wasn't true. Like, we thought what we saw was true. And then we move into deepfakes that are video deepfakes, and not long ago was the Tom Cruise one that they had to manipulate in the back room. Now, I was just on an event where live on stage, 3,000 people, and they did a deepfake while it was rolling, and the CEO was saying, yeah, don't buy my company, it's terrible. I'm saying all these things he wouldn't say, that actually they had just recorded him for a moment, turned the camera onto the MC. The MC was saying these things, but on the Megatrons, it looked like and sounded like the CEO. And for all these reasons, we're losing trust in many ways in technology and other things, and that's going to change everything for us. But I guess what this matters to the audience is we have to think of it, even though we're going to still use technology, how can you make it more personal? How can you be more trusted? How can you be more authentic? And how can you, if you get the chance, on the farm, we'd say sit on the tailgate with the guy next to you, not just, if possible, meet in person. And as I know, like this week I was speaking in Illinois, Boston, Dallas, and I think those groups, they were just back to as much in person as possible, and they know trust is built the most, the fastest, and the deepest in person. So it's just something to keep in mind. That's what the data says.
Yeah. Even how people measure trust. One of the things that I love that you've done is you've actually tried to, and successfully started measuring trust. In the marketing world, we're thinking about Net Promoter Score and other things around marketing metrics, but talk about the Enterprise Trust Index a little bit and how you measure trust.
So we have 6 significant measurement tools that people can get from Trust Edge Leadership Institute. One is the Enterprise Trust Index. And so that is for a big organization. That competes with the Gallup 11, that competes with the engagement studies. We felt like you need to measure trust and engagement to get, and what you needed, because like I said before, you don't get engagement with engagement. You have to increase trust, right? So we've used this in some of the biggest universities, the biggest companies in the world, and it really helps them close gaps. We had a company say it saved them $1 million in a day when they saw a trust gap, and they were able to, quickly do something about it. So, but basically what this does is it takes my grad work and the 8-pillar framework and questions from that, and it meshes them with valid questions that about 40 years of Accenture data, and meshes them with that to come up with a valid assessment for measuring trust and engagement in an organization. And then it's a beautiful tool that shows gaps, and you can close gaps. It's really kind of fun. Since we've been using it, I think it was since 2012 where we really came out with it. Only one time in history has someone not increased their trust score and output every time they've taken it.
Wow.
Like they get that. And one of the reasons for that might be how he helped people use it too. Many people have their company take surveys and they lose trust because they don't do anything about it or communicate about it. And we help them communicate and take action, not on everything, but on 1, 2, 3 things. And we just help with that. So that's the Enterprise Trust Index. The Trusted Team Assessment is, measuring trust in teams and showing gaps and building trust over time. And people can do that if they want to get Trust Edge certified. They can use those assessments even on their own. There's a self-assessment. There's a conversational diagnostic for conversational diagnostic for boardrooms and leadership teams. And then there's the customer assessment, which kind of competes with the NPS, where it's only 5 simple questions, not 80 questions like the Enterprise Trust Index, 5 questions you can send to all your customers. And instead of just finding out if you're referred or not, by the way, the NPS is a good white paper and referral, but it tells you not just why you're referred, but what's the key driver, so you can do something about that. If I just get more clear, I'll be referred more. If I just show I care more about the person, I'll get referred more. So you get a little, with only 5 questions that you can, put on the bottom of your receipt or send out to your millions of people, you can get credible data that shows you one thing to do that can really solve for millions of dollars.
Do you find ever that people are so focused on the results over the relationships that they kind of think they say that they know building trust is important, but they choose to continue to not build trust and just focus on results? Does that happen or not so much?
Of course. Next question.
So here's what do they do with it then?
Yeah. I mean, the truth is it is a balance, because there's people that just focus on relationship and don't get anything done. And there's people that focus on results too much and they lose all their people. That's why in the research, this 8-pillar framework came out relatively co-equal for gaining what we call a trust edge in the way that we defined high-performing positive impact, okay? Because people that are trusted, there's outliers like celebrities. They might be trusted to be funny and engaging, but you wouldn't want, your spouse alone with them or whatever, right? So they can be trusted on certain things, on competency, let's say only, but not on character or whatever. But yes, the highest performing are look at all of these and absolutely do focus on compassion and connection, which is the relationship pillars, and also focus on contribution, getting results. By the way, it's really cool how these work together, because people that get too relational focused only and don't have a vision forward of accomplishing something great, we're actually made to do something, to move something forward. It's like, build trust and do good and build scripture. So it's people want to do something together, but they want to be connected. They want to link arms. They want to, so anyway, all that to say, that was maybe ambiguous for someone who preaches on clarity, but anyway, there you go.
That's great. What do you think one question is that our listeners should be asking today to help them just think through how they could build trust better?
Well, and I gave you a personal one. Would you follow you? I'll give another personal one maybe, but let me give you the one that we're asking every time we lead people in strategic planning. In my offices, every quarter we ask this question: what is a lack of trust costing you? Or what's a lack of trust costing your team? Because my I do this yesterday. I did this with the biggest company of its kind, with 800 top leaders of this tens of thousands of people that, in their company. But I said, we talk about that because if they can answer that question and we can solve for that question, we are solving for the biggest cost in their organization, and we're doing it with trust, which is the only way to really solve it. So if someone says to me, what's a lack of trust costing us? I think it might be, efficiency here. We can look at that. Oh, I think it's because you think about someone you don't trust, you got to check up on them. That's a massive cost, right? It's attrition, let's say. Well, how many of you, lost someone you wanted to keep? Okay, this many people. Okay, well, let me tell you something. You lose someone you want to keep today, in most industries, that's about 3.5 times their salary. You're at millions of dollars so quickly you don't even know it. So if we can solve bleeding attrition of people we want to keep, we want to solve that 100%, people move, all these things happen. But if we could solve that sum, you'll save millions quickly. So that would, I just want people to think about what's a lack of trust costing here? And if they can define that, then they can solve for that.
Wow, that is so good. I love this. Reading through your material, I've learned so many good questions to start asking that have just made our team and me personally a lot better. So thank you for these and many more.
Thank you so much, Chris. It's just great to be on with you and your audience, and love it.
I want to hit you with 10 rapid fire questions to close.
I'm not ready. This was not preloaded.
What
if I don't have the answer?
There is no wrong answer.
Okay, here we go.
Who's the first person you think of when I say servant leadership?
My dad.
All right, 5 words that most describe you.
5 words. It's so hard when you talk about yourself, right? But what people say is high energy, but really authentic. Is that 5 or is that only 2?
We'll go with it. That's good.
People would say also hardworking. I like to work. I still have a hobby farm. Lisa says, my wife's like, we lose a lot of money here. We got these rescue horses. We got all this stuff. I was like, yes, but we raise kids. So anyway, I think hardworking. I think generally positive. I think I have a big care. My number one strengths finder is responsibility, and I just can't not keeping a commitment that I say is incredibly I have to do it. I've on the events I've done, it's pretty uncommon to have someone speak 100 times a year about not miss an event in 26 years. I've been driven through snowstorms. I've gotten flown in private jets when it cost me more than I was getting paid. I said I would be there, and so. There's probably something someone would say about responsibility. There's probably some other ones, that's kind of on the positive side. So that's being a little unfair. There are plenty of things I do wrong. One of the top ones that comes to mind is impatience. I want to move forward. I regret and talk to my kids about it. They're growing, they're growing up, and it's so fun to have more eyeball to eyeball. I've got 16, 18, 20, 22, but I wasn't always the best listener, and that aches me because I know better, but it's really work. So to be a better listener for sure is a progress point for me.
Those are good. Favorite book or movie?
Well, it's a great question. I think, the Bible's one I'm in the most, but I read a lot. I've read a lot of different ones lately. Let me see. The Relentless Attack of Hurry or something like that by John Mark Comer. I read recently. I read a different one on the other side that's about, it's about doing hard things, but it's way different than that. It's anyway, I'll give you, but I'm going to just amplify a friend of mine who you've had on this show, and that's Excellence Wins. Horst Schulze's work, the way he talks, the way he thinks, I just align heavily with who he is and how he thinks, and I really liked his book. And I mean, of course, for me, when you write your own books, outside of any pitch of my books, Trust Edge changed my life when that became a Wall Street Journal bestseller from someone who didn't know anything about how to market. And Trusted Leader changed me again in a way. Trust Matters, Daily Edge. So your own books, of course, I think they're impactful to others, but they impact you when you spend a couple years with something. So if you're going to say impact, outside of any pitch to others, because you write it changes you.
Those are all good. And Ruthless Elimination of Hurry by John Mark Comer. I like that one a lot too.
Thank you.
Favorite food?
Ice cream. Is that a food?
That's perfect. Favorite thing to do in your free time?
Fly fish.
All right. What's a surprising fact about you?
Left-handed.
Oh, Love that. Favorite place you've been?
Oh, that's done
You've
this
been a
work
lot of
on six.
places.
I've done this work on 6 continents. Love the people around the world. I'll say some of our work in East Africa has been really special with the folks there, the ambassador, the president, the CEO, or the vice president of parliament. Some of the countries, the Senate Majority Leader of Kenya is certified in our work as far as being trusted certified. That's been special. But I'll give you a place here in the U.S. Like I'm surprised once in a while by event places or places I've gone and done consulting or leadership teams. I was just at a place called the Cloister in Georgia on the beach there, and it was a really Lisa happened to be with, and so that was a special, fun place right here in the U.S.
I love it. Where's somewhere you want to go that you have not been?
Lisa and I want to go to Italy.
Love that.
Much of my work has been like you're already going there. So okay, you're in this place, do it, whatever. And we haven't done Italy. These are the common. It's funny, the common places that we've been Bangkok and Africa, all these, India, whatever. But a lot of the places where most people just go for vacation, like if they tried, a lot of Americans might say Italy or Ireland. We haven't been either place. So here we go.
All right, best advice you've ever gotten?
Well, I think this is my own framed up quote, but I'm sure this came out of a lot of inspiration. So it's something that's in me and I seek to do, and that is, it's the little things done consistently that make the biggest difference. I'm not overweight because I had too much this morning for breakfast. It's because I've had too many mocha lattes over years or something. I'm not, a good husband because I gave my wife a diamond ring or a dozen roses because of years of love, hopefully, right? And it's the same with leadership. You share the vision at the annual meeting, that's one thing, but if you have to share it consistently if people are going to follow it. So there's something there about consistency, doing little things, and few people do that today. It's just, I'll tell you one more since you're on it, if we got time, and that is, I think in Scripture where it says, I think it's Luke 8, where we are basically shriveling because of life's worries and riches and pleasures. The seed that fell on the soil, certain soil, it didn't grow because of life's worries and riches and pleasures. And I think we worry more in America than ever. I think we're richer than we've ever been. And I think we seek pleasure so much. I see people just pleasure. They're in their phone, they're playing some game with fruit jumping around or whatever it is, and they seek pleasure and are addicted to pleasure, and it's really hurting them and hurting us. So maybe the advice that I've been given and would give under that one would be input equals output. What you put in comes out, and that's a scriptural truth, but it's also just a law of every science. And so really be careful what you put in and what you get addicted to. Because if you want to have something that grows 100 times, you have to put different input in the soil.
Wow. All right, last one. Why is a podcast on servant leadership important?
Good, because we need this kind of leadership today, because servant leaders are leaders that are trusted.
Well, David, thank you so much. This has been amazing, and we're going to make sure to put all of the things you talked about in the description for people to go check out as well.
Thank you, Chris. Appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Servant Leadership Podcast. If you enjoyed what you heard, please give it a thumbs up and leave a comment below. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell to never miss an update. Be sure to check out the servantleadershippodcast.org for more updates and additional bonus content.